So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Pending concepts that we need to have. Okay. So first thing is locators that we need to discuss. Yeah. So from here onwards, we need to discuss about the locators, by model, by binding, by repeater. These things that we need to discuss first. Yesterday also we told the same thing, like I told the same thing that we need to discuss from locator point onwards. Yeah, that is what, right? So locators we need to discuss, and then utilities generating the reports, everything that we need to discuss, data driven point of view that we need to discuss, end-to-end testing AngularJS application. This is all nothing but theoretical part that also we need to discuss, and whatever the process that we are doing is nothing but end-to-end testing. Anyhow, we'll repeat the concept of that particular theoretical part. And handling non-Angular elements is nothing but what we are doing in our Selenium WebDriver. I'll repeat the concept. It is somewhat a small concept that we need to discuss, how to handle that non-AngularJS elements, and Jenkins, how to integrate all these things into Jenkins continuous integration tool.
Hey, hi Shiva, this is Rakesh. Yeah, I'm glad up to now we have went through the courses. So all the things which we have discussed, that was awesome, Shiva.
Okay.
I would like to thank for that. So there are, I feel like from now on, whatever the theoretical part we learned, now it's time for the practical, because in if you go join a company, right, directly we'll be given an application and we want to automate it. So
Yes,
I
I
feel
understood.
up to now, yeah, up to now, whatever we discussed is kind of a prerequisite, and you need to know about Protractor, what is Protractor, and how to configure Protractor in your machine,
Yep.
and a basics of Jasmine, what is test blocks, what is
Yep.
the test suite, what are the important keywords. So I
Okay.
feel like from now on, our actual practical session starts, because
Yep.
even if you we joined this course because of practical exposure, right? So
Yes.
my expectation on this class is from now on, we need to have an application so that we'll have finding the locators, like we'll automate text boxes, radio buttons, or whatever there in the application of Angular or anything. After that, we'll form a test suite of the same. We'll integrate with Jasmine and trigger it and generate the logs and see multiple test data running it. And we'll have 4 to 5 test cases running it, and then integrate with Jenkins and run in Jenkins. So this is what my expectation. So maybe I'm thinking 6 more classes will be taken for this. I'm just thinking so,
Okay.
because someone said it is the last class. I hope it's not, right?
It's not the last class, because I hope that I have a application ready in front of you so that I can explain the locators or something like that. But I thought that there are generating logs, the data driven testing. These concepts will take some more time to explain. But anyhow, end-to-end testing on AngularJS application will be easy for us to define everything. This is all about theoretical part, no need to worry about that. But remaining things that we need to have practical related kind of thing, that what you said is right. And apart from that, we need to concentrate more on how to create the config files, and how to create the specification files, and how to configure it, how to trigger it, what type of things that we need to concentrate more on, these type of stuff that we need to concentrate. That I understood what we need to take care of that.
Yeah, definitely. So take your
Yeah.
own time. We'll always be there, and I think there is no rush from the students also to complete the classes as
Yeah.
soon as
Yeah.
possible. So everyone
Yeah.
wants the practical exposure. So take your own time. As of
Yeah.
now, for me, the classes are like, we just learned about how to configure Selenium. Sorry, how to configure Protractor. What is Protractor? How to configure Protractor in Eclipse.
Yeah.
That's what as of now I learned. So right now
Okay.
I'm thinking I will get practical exposure from now on. The actual classes will.
Yes. Today I'll do one thing. So whatever the locators concept that we have today, we'll discuss about the locators concept. and then slowly we'll start writing the programs, not slowly, like based on the locators what we are going to discuss. We are going to design the programs based on the locators and all, and we'll start comparison between how to design the locators, how to define the locators, and how we need to use that locators in our programmatic part. And then we'll move to the config file and spec file, and then we'll see how we are going to define the programs and how we are going to design the programs. Let's start the session based on the locators today. So these locators are used to design the program, and these locators are used to identify the elements in AngularJS application. What is by model, what is by class name, what is by button text, all these things we'll see in today's session, and we'll find out how we are going to use these elements or these locators in our programmatic. Okay, so I'm going to mute all your mics so that I'll continue the session. So if you have any questions, you can ping me in the chat box so that I'll explain you whatever the questions that you have. Locators. What is meant by locator? Basically, in our automation development point of view or automation testing point of view, we are using we are using this term called locator or element. We are using this term called locator or element. So what is this locator or element? Locator or element is nothing but it plays a key role in order to find out the field name or in order to find out the object on the web page. Remember this point, everything in the automation point of view will deals with the objects on the browser. What is mean by object again? Everything you are seeing on the browser is nothing but an object. Let's say, for example, I am going to open google.com web page. Here you are seeing a web page. Everything what you are seeing is nothing but an object. Browser itself is one object. Browser itself is one object. Image is object. This search box is one object. Button is one object. This button is also like that. Everything is nothing but one object. As you said, someone pinged me that locator is not an element. I said locator or element. We are finding out the element or the locator. Whatever the point that you said is right. Locator is not an element. It is a format or it is a way to find out the element is nothing but locator. How many types of locators that we have? In Selenium WebDriver, generally we used to talk about the locators in 8 types, like CSS, class name, ID, right? So all these things are nothing but locator types that we are going to use. Any object on the web page will have at least one locator, minimum one locator to maximum 8 locators. We can't say that one. It's all depending upon the environment or UI designing part, what our HTML page contains, right? Let's say, for example, this object is there, this field is there. This field may have ID, may have XPath, may have both ID and XPath, may have CSS, everything may be there. So 8 types of locators can be assigned to a single field. So no need to worry about that. But here, a field is there means a locator will be there. Element is there means locator will be there. That we need to remember. Here in Protractor, there are multiple types of locators. There are multiple types of locators. Here in general, we are going to use the term called element in Protractor. So how we are going to deal with such type of elements in the Protractor? Let's see how many types of locators or elements are there. Okay, let me write it here. A locator is nothing but it tells the protractor how to find out how to find out the element on the web page. This locator will be called by using the global keyword by. Usually we are using the keyword by, right? So the same keyword we are going to use in protractor also. The list of most common locators and their syntaxes. Let us see. First one, finding element by id. So usually we are going to write this finding element by id means driver dot find element by id so and so id send keys or click or clear or something we are going to perform. But in protractor we are not going to bother about like browser and all, what type of capabilities and whatever the driver related things, that we are not going to bother here. Why? Because I'll let you know. This depends upon the configuration file. Again, we will discuss about that. In general, protractor defines the element by using id in the format of by dot id. Here we are going to mention the id name. id name. Give the semicolon here, or else once the statement is going to be completed, we can mention the semicolon. Here we need to remember that by.id represents the id name here, but why we are not mentioning the browser driver.find element, why we are not finding out the element here, why we are not using that format what we have been used in Selenium WebDriver and all that, we need to discuss, so that you'll understand why we are using by.id id name here and why we are using driver.find element by id in Selenium WebDriver. The difference between these two things here, these two things are: first thing, Selenium WebDriver always directly interacts with the browser. There is no interface in between the user and the browser. Selenium WebDriver itself interacts with the browser, so that is the reason we are creating objects for the browser in Selenium WebDriver, and we are calling that driver.findElement so and so. But in Protractor, what we are doing here is we are going to design multiple scenarios in a specification file, spec.js file. We are going to create like that. This spec.js file will be configured in config file, conf.js. What we are executing here, we are executing conf.js, so that automatically every scenario that we have been mentioned in spec.js is going to be executed. Why we are discussing about this point when we are talking about browser means, in conf.js, in config.js, we are going to define the browser name. Define the browser name. We are going to define the browser name. This configuration file will have the browser name by using the keyword capabilities. By using the keyword capabilities. But where we are writing the scenario, let's say for example, I have a Gmail application. I have 4 modules: inbox, and items, drafts, and trash. 4 scenarios will be written in spec.js file. But related to these 4 scenarios what I have mentioned in spec.js file, I am going to create config file by mentioning this particular name in this config file. I am going to execute this file, right? So here the representation would be like this: whatever the modules or whatever the scenarios that we are designing, that user is designing, No need to mention any browser in specification file. In specification file, the high level things like browser configuration, browser control, everything will be created in config file, so that repetitive task will be decreased here. Repetitive task will be decreased. Here we are going to mention the browser name. No need to configure anything. So that is the reason browser is not going to involve while representing the locator in Protractor test automation tool. That is the reason we are not going to call the browser. This is the only one and only one comment which is applicable to all the locators in this particular list. Okay, the next thing, I hope you understood my point why I am not directly communicating with the browser. Why? Because here I haven't mentioned any browser object related to the browser what I am using. Why? The config file will have the default browser name where it is going to communicate, where it is going to create that process. So here the statement, no need to bother about browser name, browser object name or something like that. Just we need to mention by.id. What is that id name that we need to mention here? Next thing, CSS selector. I hope everyone knows about this. CSS is nothing but cascading style sheet. So this is a format of representing the field, one more format to represent the field. So just I am going to give it like this. The representation would be by dot CSS of, we need to represent CSS name. Sorry, here I have mentioned double quotations. As I said in the first session, we need to have single quotations here. CSS name. Generally the CSS name would be like this, dot class or something like that it will be. So we'll see a real-time example once we complete this particular point. Next thing, one CSS selector completed. Next thing is, sorry, name. We have class name there in Selenium WebDriver. Here we have only that name. So here this name will be used in order to find out the name of that particular field, name of that particular element name. So here we are representing this name as like this, by dot name of, we need to mention the field name. We need to mention the field name. Next thing, model. We are going to represent this model by dot model, by dot model. Here we need to mention the name of that particular model, name of that particular model. This model will be used only for AngularJS application. We are not going to use this model for any other applications. Non-AngularJS applications, we are not going to use this keyword model. For AngularJS applications only, we are going to use this model. In Protractor only, we have this option to find out the element name by using model. And the final one is binding. And the final one is binding. What is this binding? What is this binding? In AngularJS, usually, if you observe AngularJS applications or any applications which are developed under this AngularJS framework, there are multiple HTTP requests in a same screen. As I said, like yesterday we discussed one example. If we are passing data in normal application which is developed with non-AngularJS technology, the field what we are entering, that will be displayed, that will be saved in the respective column in the database. But for AngularJS application, everything will be saved in a JSON object. That JSON object will be moved to the database. In the database, the data will be distributed in the respective columns. Like that, it is going to happen. In the same way, binding also like that only. In a single screen, in a single page applications, there are multiple requests which has been binded at the same time. So when you open a web page, if there are multiple requests in the same web page, automatically all the requests will be binded, and it will give you the output when you are executing the script. The binding concept is also the same thing. How many elements that has been binded is the concept, is nothing but binding. Here we are using the syntax called by dot binding. Here we need to mention the binding name. Here we need to mention the binding name. This is nothing but binding. This is nothing but binding. As I said, here the format of using all these locators are like this: by dot id name, by dot css name, by dot name field name. Like that we are using. In the real time example, in the original program, how we need to use these elements in a functionality or in a test script, Okay, let us see that one. In a real functionality, how we need to use the locators represented above. Suppose I have a login screen. In that login screen, I have username, password, and login button. 3 fields are there. 2 text fields and 1 button is there. If I am going to use directly like by CSS name, is there any action that is going to perform over there? Am I finding multiple elements over there? No. That is the reason the format that we need to finding out an element on the web page in Protractor is element by dot css of css name we need to represent. Like this, we need to represent in a real-time functionality in a program what we are going to design. In a program what we are going to design. Let's say, so I'm going to take one login screen. Just I am in today's session I am going to give you the overview how to design the script, how to capture the locators, and how to make sure that how to design a script in a protractor. So I have a login screen like this. Let's say that this is the application developed in AngularJS technology, but I am not sure about that. Just I am assuming that this is an AngularJS application. I have email address field, I have password field, I have login button here in this screen. I need to enter username, I need to enter password, I need to click on login button. I need to click on login button. What is the format or what is the way that I need to follow in order to design the script related to this particular login functionality? In order to follow this particular functionality, let us write the sample script. As of now, I am going to write the sample statements here. First, once we complete this one, we will discuss about the direct program spec.js in a scenario file. So for understanding purpose, I am going to design a script. Login to the application. Now, by using locators or elements, how we can capture this one, how we can design this script. As I said, element is nothing but to finding out an element. For the initial purpose, I am going to create a variable ab is equals to element. Variable ab is equals to element of first let us define the sample script, and then we'll move to the original AngularJS application so that you'll get to know what I am doing here. Okay, so here I am creating one variable which is having with the name ab, and I am storing a locator into this variable. What is the locator? Here email address is the email address is the element where I am going to find out the locator for this email address. So let's say, for example, id is there for this email address. I am going to capture that id. Capture this id. Here I'm going to give the locator here. Just make sure that we are going to put the locator name here. Place the cursor in the field. How to write this one? ab dot click, and then enter some text in the username field. Enter some text in the username field. ab dot send keys. ab dot send keys. Here I am going to enter the text abc@mail.com, and then in the same format I am going to create one more variable for password field, where cd is equals to element of password cd dot click, and then cd dot send keys of test@123 is the password. Like this, we are going to mention the login related fields. The next thing that we need to have is login button, where I'm going to create one more variable where I'm going to store the locator there. Ef is equals to element of login button. This is the class name what it is having. So let's take the class name here, element of ef dot click semicolon ef, sorry, that's fine. Ef dot click means already it has been clicked. We took that element name, and automatically it will capture what is the element type that we have been taken, and it will click on that particular element. Or else here, sorry, by dot id. by dot id. By dot class. Yeah, we can go with field name over there because class is not the locator in Protractor, right? Sorry for that. By dot log. I think this is correct. If you capture that by dot name login, once you click on that, automatically it will get logged in. Like that, we are going to design the script based on the locators what we are having and what is the whatever the actions that we need to perform. And next thing that we need to discuss is we have a concept called find element and find elements. Find element is nothing but if you want to find out single element on the web page, then we need to go with find element. If we want to find out multiple elements, then we need to go with find elements. But in Protractor, if you want to find out multiple elements, then you need to use the keyword elements.all. Element.all. What is the type? By dot css of, we need to mention the css name. We need to mention the css name, and then we need to perform the action. Then is the keyword for that. Here we need to perform action. We need to perform action. So this is the syntax if you are trying to find out multiple elements by using css. If it is by name, the field name must be same. If it is by some other name, the names must be same. All these things that we need to take care when we are designing the script. But for our reference, I am writing one sample thing here, one sample script here. Number of elements on the web page, first thing. So here element dot all of locator, we need to make sure that we need to mention the locator here. Is it by id or something else? Count, we are going to capture the count of that particular locator. So if you want to start the count from 0, we need to start the index from 0 onwards. Now element dot all of, again, locator we need to mention, dot get off index. If you want to start with 0 element, first element, then we need to provide the index. Element dot all of locator dot first. So element dot all of locator dot last. So it will find out the first name and the first field and the last field of that particular locator name. Yeah, here we are creating elements like this. If we are trying to find out the multiple elements, we are going to use the keyword element dot all. Next, Coming back to the variable what we have been declared, variable ab is equals to element by id so on so locator name ab dot click ab dot send keys. Why we need to create the variables? Is there any need of creating variables like this, or directly we can define the element by id input email dot click, element by id input email dot send case, like that we can define, right? So why we are creating variables in Protractor? In order to define the elements, or in order to send the data to that particular field. Here the thing why we are creating the variables for the element is for the code reusability purpose. The concept is nothing but variable reusability. If we are creating variables like this, we can reuse the same variable in any point of the program, in any statement of the program, because the scenario what we are creating is not going to end by this particular statement only, right? So that is the reason I am saying, if we are creating variables that will be reused, in that will be reused in our program at some point of time. So that is the reason it is very important to create variables in AngularJS applications like Protractor. Remember that in Protractor only this logic that we need to use. Why? Because finding out an element or finding out the locator for that particular element in AngularJS application is too complicated when compared to non-AngularJS application. So that is the reason once variable is going to be created, that variable can be reused anywhere else in the program. That is the main theme of creating variables here. Okay, yeah. And the final one that we need to discuss is button. Here just we used login button, right? By name login here, where ef is equals to element by name login, but the actual format that we can use for the buttons is where button is equals to mention the button name here, mention the button name here, and then, or else you can use one more format, button name is equals to element of by dot name. The same thing what I have written in this particular case, the same thing I have written here also. Here, if you are creating variable means someone will think that you are storing some value into that variable. So that is the reason I have replaced the name ef with the name button. So it means that you are clicking on some button. What is that button name means? You are going to represent the button name here, you are going to mention the button name here. This is the way to mention the locators or element names using by using any application. This is the way that we need to represent the element names or locator names, and how to find out these locators or element names in AngularJS application. Let us see. So someone ping me this URL. I'm going to use the same URL. Not only this one, we have make selenium easy, some website is there, in that also we have demo AngularJS applications where we can use that one. I'm going to click on customer login. Let us see, button is there, right click on this button, element. Here we have so many things, button name, here class is there, ng click is there, something is there. You can go with class name here. You can use sorry, button name here we can use, because by class is not there in our program, in our locators list. So that is the reason you can go with button name, customer login dot click, ng click. Ng click is nothing but our programmatic part. Let me analyze this one first. Again, this has been defined in the class. id is equals to user select is the id is there, you can use the id name here. In this drop down you need to select one value. We'll discuss how to select the drop down list using Protractor. Login. So again here you'll have some more values. Here you have class name, ng class, ng button. You'll have account, select id is there. Okay, guys, I'll do one thing. Anyhow, we discussed locators today, right? So let us design the script on this particular application in tomorrow's session.